Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you once again for tuning in to another edition of the Football Forecast. Here, a presentation from State Champs. My name is Lauren Plant, Scott Bernstein, Matt Mowry, Sean Belizean here. The gang's all here. First off, I appreciate you guys holding the fort on Monday for Extra Point, so good job on that. And we're ready to get into Week 7, Just a couple days later, we're ready to go right into it.
We're in the stretch run.
That's right.
Official, last quarter of the season.
Crazy.
Last third of the season, sorry. And, we can see the playoffs. We can smell the Thanksgiving meal starting to cook and people matriculating into Ford Field from all around the state for that special weekend, that state finals weekend. And it's all upon us. It's all on the horizon, and that's an exciting time of the year.
No doubt. A ton of teams already punched their ticket. They're in. A ton more will punch in this week, and a ton more will also be officially eliminated this week as well. We're going to see a lot of that. That's kind of what Week 7 is in high school football. So we're going to get into it. The forecast is sponsored by Lawrence Technological University. They, as a football team, are traveling to North Dakota. They will take on Trinity Bible.
It's like 1,000 miles.
Yeah,
like 980 miles or something.
2,000 round trip. Yes,
okay, yeah.
Exactly.
I read that.
Yeah, it's like a 16-hour bus ride those guys are going to be on. So, and if you're ever interested in knowing more about Lawrence Tech football, what's happening, I do a podcast with Coach Duvendeck. You could check out. It's Tuesday nights. It's up on all our channels as well as LTU Athletics, and you could check that out. Of course, their games stream live, so if you're ever interested in seeing what LTU football is about, they set a record again against Eastern Michigan last week. Granted, it's a club team, but 65-0 was the win there. They would be statistically number one in the entire nation in NAIA in football in defense, as they've given up just a ridiculous few amount of points, back-to-back shutouts. So Trinity Bible's a real team, and they were a team that had got kind of blown out early, and then they've won their last two against some NAIA competition. So we'll see what happens with that. That is what's happening.
This year for the Blue Devils,
it's a reboot.
It's really just laying the foundation and getting used to running a football program and going through all the protocol that you need to get a football program up and running. And really, you couldn't have scripted it any better. I mean, I know they're playing club teams, but they're
playing you and me.
But they're mopping the floor with them. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
Yes, no
doubt
about it.
They're supposed to win 65.
Yeah, I mean, again, for a coaching staff to inherit a team of all freshmen, and that's what you're putting out there, you got to get that thing to work. And so far, they've dominated like nobody's business. So the MHSAA and Hungry Howie's also sponsors of this podcast. Thank you to them. Games on State Champs TV this week. And I want you guys to understand that our mission at State Champs is always to be interactive. So we get emails from viewers. We meet people out at games. And we also don't want to always just cover the biggest games that some would consider in the state. We want to kind of get around and get everybody their chance to be on TV if we can, and try to find some decent matchups at the same time. So that's kind of our motto and what we do every week. Now, granted, when we get into the playoffs, we tend to kind of lean more towards the bigger matchups. But we always try to find at least a mix of having that. So one of the things that we've got going on this week is, and I saw this one, and this just was a game that I wanted us to cover because we haven't seen Marine City yet on TV this year, and they are 5-1 going to St. Clair, and they're 4-2. Interesting thing I noticed is that the Saints and Marine City, at least on the Saints side, have played more than any other opponent. So these two have played each other for the longest times. 43-20-4 is the record. Marine City with the advantage in that. So these are two teams that get together every year. Basically.
This is a pretty good Mariners team, too. Yeah. I mean, the record speaks for itself. And I mean, their only loss was a close loss to, a pretty darn good Madison Heights team. So, this is a pretty good Mariners team. And the Saints have an explosive offense. This is an intriguing matchup. This is one of those matchups that I'm going to be keeping an eye on personally.
And, you're talking about the St. Clair offense. It's going to be on the shoulders of guys like Mason Walker and that Marine City defense. To stem the tide there with that momentum that St. Clair's got on the offensive side of the football. And then I think it's Aaron Sopfi, the running back for Marine City, who kind of paces that offense on the other side of the ball. He ran for like a $125 and 3 touchdowns, I believe, either last week or 2 weeks ago. And he's a game breaker of a running back. So
Yeah, St. Clair also lost to Madison. They had a loss in the beginning of the year to cross Lexington, 27-21. But they are a team that has not beat Marine City since 2013, so you know that automatically is going to bring the people out. And that is one of the reasons that we went there. Angelo Petsalis for Marine City is a kid last week that rushed for 78 yards, had 3 touchdowns. He also returned a punt, 84 yards for them. They beat Clawson 28-8. And Clawson's always a team that is going to put up points more than anything, so they held them to 8.
Wait, who was the back that did that last week?
Angelo Petsalis.
Okay, so then I guess him and Sopfi both are, kind of a nice little 1-2 there for Marine City.
Yes, exactly. And so, again, the main reason is Marine City is one of these teams that traditionally every year is making long runs deep into the playoffs. We wanted to make sure we got out and saw the Mariners. It's kind of a little difficult to always get out to Marine City to see them. St. Clair's a little closer. This seemed like a good matchup. And, and again, a good opportunity for them right now to ink themselves in the playoffs. And when it comes to Division IV, you always got to deal with Marine City.
Marine City seems to have a group of running backs. I think in addition to those 2, they got another 3 or 4 that all touch the ball. So it's spreading the wealth around in the rushing department.
Over the past 20 years, Marine City has made the playoffs every year, except for 2016. That's the only year they haven't made.
They've had since 1990. They've had double-digit wins in 15 seasons. I mean, that's a pretty. When you get 10+ wins, you've done a lot of good things. Yeah, and it would be nice to see St. Clair if they can kind of break that little playoff drought they've had since 2014.
Yeah,
if they can beat either Marine City or South Lake next week, then they've got a winless New Haven squad in week 9, so it's probably a pretty good chance that you can get that win number 6 if you can get one of the next 2. So they've got still pretty good odds of making it in.
Well, again, I don't think they'll get in at 5-4, so they're going to have to get 6 wins to get in. And of course, if they could do that and by beating Marine City, so a lot on the line for them. And again, good 5-1, 4-2 matchup. Number 9, Warren De La Salle is going to number 20, Davison. This was definitely one that you may not have circled on the calendar at the beginning of the season, but after week 1, you definitely said we're going to keep an eye on this matchup later in the year. It's kind of a nice deviation for De La Salle, too, to get away from the Catholic League Central. They got Catholic Central next week in Detroit Catholic Central, but this is the first meeting between these 2 schools, and I thought that was interesting.
Well, these are kind of the intersectional matchups, a little bit of intersectional that you get in week 1 or week 2 when everybody's, doing the non-conference stuff, and this is kind of fun to have this in the middle of the season because it really didn't mean anything, and both teams are solidly headed toward the playoffs. So really it's not, imperative that either team get a win to get in. Yeah. So this is just for fun.
Right. Well, we know Davison can score.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Almost 250 points total this year.
40 points a game. Yep.
Right. I was surprised to see that De La Salle, who had been dominating so much defensively, they'd only given up 14 points over their previous 4 games, that they gave up 20 to Jesuit.
Yeah.
So, even though they scored 41 and won handily, they still gave up 20 points in that one. So that tells me that, I'm sure at least for Davison, they're going to be saying we might just win a shootout if that's how it's going to go down.
Well, it's still just two times that they've given up more than 7 points in a game. So, yeah, it's still pretty stout. But, yeah, that number did stick out.
I know Alan's going to talk about this player, but I can tell you on a personal level, I've had a chance to see a few of his games and call a few of his games. That DeBerry is a darn good running back. I don't think there's enough being talked about.
He's kind of a slot back, and he's being projected at the next level as a corner. And
he can do anything.
And he can do it all.
And now he's playing. He's catching the ball. He's rushing the ball. Obviously, he's doing what he does as a lockdown corner. But I think we spoke about it a couple weeks ago, and it's paying off. His patience in the recruiting game. He's not just jumping at the first couple offers that he gets, and then all of a sudden last week the ACC comes in and Wake Forest offers him. So, and I really think that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I think too. By the time we hit signing day, he's going to have a handful of power conference offers to decide between because he's a power conference player.
His huddle film just from this season is going to be turning eyes, no doubt about it, because he's making big, long ball plays against good teams.
In all types of situations.
Sometimes you just got to wait it out. Yep. And just because you're not, like we've said this before, just because you're not getting those offers at 15, 16, like Garrett Dellinger and Rocco Spindler, who by the time they're turning 16, they already have Michigan State, Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're not coming.
We made the comparison to Grant Perry Barry earlier in the season here on the podcast.
And they got a kid right now also that I've been kind of tracking, talking to Alan True and some other people. I think his name is Grant Totant, and he's a lineman, a big guy, about 6'5", 6'6", 275, and I think he's a senior, and he's just starting to land on the radar of some Division I programs. I know that Central and Western have started to sniff around him. So I know he's a guy, another kind of slow burn on his recruiting profile to keep an eye on going forward.
And in the last couple of weeks, the Bears had to do it with a new quarterback because obviously Anthony Stepnitz got hurt. So Nolan Schultz stepped in and has been doing pretty well for them. I mean, he's not going to put up Cannon Hall numbers. Nobody's going to put up Cannon Hall numbers except Cannon Hall, but that's not really what they need him to do.
No.
He just needs to be kind of steady, and he's had about 50 yards passing, which is not, incredible, but he's run for, I think, 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks. So he's just kind of filling in that role of field general more than anything.
I would say if there's anything that defines Mike Giannoni's profile, it's next man up.
Yeah.
In everything he does, always deep. His teams are always going to be well disciplined, and I'm sure he was not happy giving up 20 points to Jesuit last week, and he felt that is something he knows they cannot do because Davison will score.
Yep.
So, and again, if you're not firing on all cylinders offensively, then let's move on. Millington and Frankenmuth are getting together, a TVC East Division game. This is, again, another game that you'll be able to see on State Champs. This will be in our Flint package. Both teams 5-1. This, you talk about Davison and De La Salle never played before. These two play a lot, and it's not if you kind of live out that way, it's not a friendly rivalry. These two like getting after it and like beating each other, Frankenmuth being at home is to their advantage. They've won the last 3 times. These two have got together, and Frankenmuth really just over the past couple of years has really just kind of put themselves on the map as a team that is expected to go far in the playoffs.
5-11 since 2012. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
and over the same span, Millington's 61-14. So I mean, these are two programs that consistently are at the top. I think going into the season with Frankenmuth, especially, having made the 2 long runs to the semis over the last couple of years, the thing that they were worried about was that offensive line where they graduated everybody, and they've kind of had to replenish that. Really, their only loss is to a Swan Valley team that beats up a lot of people.
Yeah.
And has that physical presence both offensively and defensively, and will take advantage. I mean, Alma, same thing happened to them last week where they were a little undersized.
Swan Valley's the pride of that area in Saginaw right now for football, and an area that over the years has been pretty rich in talent. It's now kind of Saginaw, Swan Valley's time to be the big dog on the mountain.
It's true.
Yep. And Millington's only losses to an Ohio team that's pretty decent.
Yeah, so, Sylvania Southview to open the year. So they've won 5 in a row.
Yeah, both teams are really kind of on a roll at this point because I think Frankenmuth's loss to Swan Valley was week 2. So they both, kind of settled everything down and kind of Millington's road to get into the playoffs. If they don't win this one, they've got Alma next week and then Warren Michigan Collegiate to round out the season. So they're wanting to get that one game to guarantee them getting in. It's going to be a hard road over the next 3 weeks.
Well, what intrigues about this one, 5-game winning streak, 4-game winning streak, both offenses are rolling. And that's one of those cool places to see a game, too. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go. Frankenmuth's a pretty cool place to see a game
get
up
a chicken
there.
dinner.
North of town, and then you go right back into town.
Once a year, and
cool place to see a game.
hit the fried chicken, mashed potato circuit. And it's a great little town, and it's like
especially this time of year, man. It's
October.
It's
a throwback, man. It's like you feel like you're kind of transported to a different era.
No doubt.
And they got a really nice quarterback in Connor Campbell. Again, one of these kids that can beat you with his arm, beat you with his legs. And then I know that Alec Yagala has been rushing the ball with a lot of consistency for that Frankenmuth offense.
Both teams can score a lot. Frankenmuth scored the most points they had all season last week in beating Essexville Garber 56-18. Millington hasn't scored less than 34 in any game this season, and several of them have been more than that. So that is going to be a matchup to watch, and you could watch it on State Champs. All right, another game that we're going to have is another team that has been very intriguing this year, and that is number 25 now, South Lyon, who is 6-0 on the year, at Waterford,
Out of
4-2 and reeling.
Out of nowhere, South Lyon came in and said, "I know that nobody's been thinking about us as a contender for a league title in a while, but guess what? We're here. We're here to stay. We're learning from that 1-8 finish last year. We're building under Coach Jeff Henson and just a tremendous job by that South Lyon coaching staff and those players to be 6-0 right now. And like you said, going into Waterford Mott right now, a team that is struggling, has kind of lost its moxie.
They lost 37-6 to South Lyon East.
Yeah, and the week before that, they had trouble with Kettering, a team they should not have had trouble with.
Western put 52 on.
And then the week before that, they got waxed by Walled Lake Western, and it's gut check time for Waterford Mott and Chris Farr's troops. They're a team that takes a lot of pride in bringing that high quality of football to Waterford that was really missing high quality football for quite a bit until Farr came in and has made Mott the contender that it is. But they got some issues, and some of those issues, frankly, is heart, because there's losing football games, and there's no shame in losing football games, and then there's getting toasted, scorched by Walled Lake Western, a team that is your main rival, all due respect to Kettering. And then South Lyon,
Kettering is the beef bowl.
Yes,
they've got that they do every year.
And Mott had to pull away in the third and fourth quarter for that.
Yeah.
And then last week to lose like that to South Lyon East,
which is good this year.
South Lyon East is really good. They're in second place in the league,
right.
and they're
doing it with defense, which is part of the problem. They turned over Mott quite a bit.
This game really. This isn't taking anything away from South Lyon, who's tracking towards a league title right now.
Yes,
but this is a do or die game for Waterford Mott.
Do or die at home.
This is the season right now.
Right now,
whatever's going to happen going forward will be dictated by what happens on Friday night.
If they pull out some win, however they do it, then all of a sudden their confidence level, everything is right back. Here we are, boys. Let's go.
And that's the opposite. That goes back to what you were saying about South Lyon. I mean, here's a team. It's been a series of steps. It was, okay, we're going to take our lumps, and then we're going to find a way to win close ones. Because if you look at it, I mean, they found a way to win some close ones, and it's built to a crescendo. So they're a dangerous team right now.
Very.
And a win by Mott, you want to talk about parity. A win by Mott would likely leave the conference with three 2-loss teams and 2 1-loss teams in conference, going into week 8 when South Lyon takes on Western.
And this is great.
So, anything can happen at this point, and nothing's over.
No.
The reason I think it's great is because Oakland County is my bread and butter.
Yep.
But whether we're talking about the LVC, which has just popped up these last 2 years, or the KLA North, which all these teams were in for at least 7, 8, 9 years before that, there was really no true competition in that league race. It was Walled Lake Western. Sometimes you had a team like Mott pop their head up, and
Brighton.
Brighton wasn't playing those guys in league play. That was more crossover stuff.
Got it.
But
they weren't in that division.
The Walled Lake Northern, Walled Lake Central,
KLA divisions, right.
Western Central, Northern, the South Lions, the Waterfords, and it really was it was like what the Big Ten used to be. In the Bo Woody era, where it was the Big 2 and the Little 10, Big 2 and Little 8, and now to see a league that is just really prospering and has so many clubs in the mix with 3 weeks to play for the league title. I mean, it's a crapshoot right now.
And it's a testament to the area and how it's grown there. I mean, the whole South Lyon area has blown up. The Waterford area continues to replenish and refurbish, and so I mean, the population go there, kids go there. Kids who play sports and parents with money and all of that, and there they are. So we're going to move on. Detroit Public, this is a game that was a viewer email game. I do want to say this right off the bat. In fact, it's the game that I'm going to be filming myself. But we got an email from a guy named Rob, and I like reading the emails on the show because they're fun. And this wasn't that it was all that super passionate about, but he asked, hey, I was wondering how games are chosen to be featured on the show. Well, the answer is you go to contact us at statechampsnetwork.com and you email us, and we entertain it. He said Lutheran High Westland has a big homecoming game on October 5th against Detroit Public Safety Academy. These are 2 smaller schools that do not get really any pub whatsoever. They're also in the top 3 of the Michigan Independent Athletic Conference, the MIAC as it's known. So it's a pretty important league game for both teams. This is a request for coverage. Your coverage will generate a lot of buzz for the schools. The State Champs Sunday show will get new eyeballs and social media shares. We love the show. Rob.
And to let the people know, because I had to ask a couple of years ago when I started seeing the Detroit Public Safety athletic teams out and about.
Yes.
I said, what exactly is Detroit Public Safety? And they said, it's a school for kids that want to become police officers and go into law enforcement. Yeah, and so that's kind of pretty cool that you can kind of, foresee that for your education and for your career path when you're 14, 15 and get into a high school that's going to start preparing you for what you're going to do when you're in your 20s.
It's a brilliant obviously idea for a high school, and there are a lot of kids that, again, you don't have to have some extreme education to do that. It's here it is, we're going to focus on things to get you ready for the next level, whether that's the academy or whatever it is. And and here they are, 5-1 on the season.
Did Rob give you names to look for?
He did not give me
Shundeen
names, so
Bridges.
I figured you guys would do
Shundeen Bridges.
How about Devontae Webb?
Okay.
Devontae Webb returned a punt 95 yards for a touchdown, and one of his 2 interceptions for a touchdown in a 14-6 win for Detroit Public Safety last week over Lutheran Northwest. A week earlier, returned 2 punts for touchdowns. So kid has clearly got some moves in the open field. And Bridges has been throwing.
Bridges has been throwing for over 300 yards a couple times. At least I've seen when I did a little research before this that a number of occasions, at least I think 2 or 3 occasions, he was over 300 this year. And anytime you got a guy in the pocket with an arm like that and you got a return guy and a receiver like Webb.
Warriors fans have got to be a little fired up because this was a team that maybe their season was on the brink, losing their first couple, and now they caught fire. They won 3 out of their last 4, so have a great time out there, Lauren. That's going to be an outstanding matchup.
I definitely will, and I always have a good time. Actually, Lutheran Westside's great baseball program for those.
And I was a MIAC guy. I grew up playing in the MIAC, and so it was before Detroit Public Safety was in it.
Right.
Yeah. But I had traveled to Lutheran Westland on a number of occasions in my youth.
Yes,
to play
exactly.
basketball and baseball.
Yeah, the MIAC,
not football.
The MIAC now consists of Mount Clemens, Parkway Christian out of Sterling Heights, Oakland Christian, Southfield Christian. This is
there was no football league MIAC when I was in high school.
Lutheran Northwest
football league took form like in the last 10 years.
The famous Dearborn Heights Star International,
which used to be Fairlane Christian.
Yes,
and I think several of those teams that are playing MIAC schedules this year are not eligible for the league title. I don't think Detroit Public Safety is.
Okay.
I think Mount Clemens and Star Academy are not as well. So basically, this is one where if Lutheran Westland wants to get into the race, they have a chance.
Yeah.
Even though they're a game behind the 2 leaders, and Parkway Christian, I believe, is undefeated. So,
well, the thing is, at least the only league loss they have was Parkway Christian.
Yeah.
And the other 2 were Edison and Hamady. Flint Hamady, no joke. They're
the league
for
is
real
actually
this year.
Even though the league's only been around for 10 years or so, it actually has produced an NFL player,
Zerlon
Tipton.
Yes, exactly.
Who sadly passed away
from Parkway
a
Christian
year or 2 ago.
I know.
Played for the Indianapolis Colts and had a great career. Was it Central?
Yeah, I did a great feature on him on State Champs his senior year. He was voted one of our student athlete of the week.
Great basketball player.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's pretty cool. If you want to check that out, you can Google it on the State Champs archive.
That's one where you see a kid from a small school like that on the recruiting list, and you go, "Oh, that's nice for him. He'll get a uniform." And he was good. He was fast too.
Yeah, he was strong. Yep. Strong kid. All right, let's move on. Our main event this week, and again, this is another one that was a viewer email request we had a couple weeks ago.
Well-deserving clash of undefeateds.
Yeah, exactly. Now, they weren't both at the time. They were 4-0 at the time. But her name is Nakia Scott, so I'm giving her a shout-out. She wanted us to come see Robichaud. She's got a very big interest in the freshman quarterback, David Williams. And she says that head coach Donnie Scott has done a tremendous job for those kids over there. And, Robichaud, that's where Tyrone Wheatley went. That's what, and what's good about Robichaud is, it's basically Inkster, if you've ever been there. And Inkster's closed, so Robichaud's really the only game in town over there as far as public schools. And this is a great story that they're 6-0. Maybe what's even better is that for the first time in more than a decade, Crestwood is 6-0.
And Crestwood hasn't made the playoffs since 2005. So.
Right. And they just beat their other city rival, Annapolis 35-6.
They are pounding as of late. Crestwood is again, one of those crescendo things. They've been pounding as of late. This is great. I mean,
Yeah, this is going to be a fun
that
game.
area to have 2 6-0 teams. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
Well, and like we were talking about with the Lakes Valley, when they pulled away from the KLAA and formed their own, and it got them parity.
The WEWAC.
The WEWAC with the teams that left and went to the KLAA to fill out the East with Dearborn and Fordson and Belleville. They kind of just consolidated. I think Edsel Ford went to the Downriver League, but other than that, they just kind of consolidated everybody else into one big division. And it'll be interesting going from here, because you mentioned David Williams. He's blown up this year, and we've had a couple of emails about him, and kind of wanted to get down and see him myself. But I think he's got 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns already. And one of those games they played, they didn't play because Clarenceville forfeited, and it looks like Clarenceville is going to end up forfeiting out the season. So that's going to be a dynamic in the league race, too, because
Tim
Crestwood
Shaw's
will get that next week. Yeah.
I don't think we could ever name one Crestwood athlete. I was trying to jog my mind.
Kicker.
Which
played
one?
for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Stoyanovich?
Yeah.
He went to Crestwood. I know he's from Dearborn.
He went to Crestwood.
Nice.
Bam.
Well played.
Yep.
Ask and you shall receive. Kevin Trzynski.
And I believe
on the
Stoyanovich
ones
went to
and
Indiana
twos.
as well. He went to
Stoyanovich.
my
Stojakovic?
Stoyanovich.
His little brother went to state.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's two of them.
Pete and Billy.
Yeah.
Pete,
Pete and
okay.
Billy.
All right.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Well, sorry. Please continue, Matt.
I was just going to say the interesting dynamic in the league race is that Clarenceville was the next up for Crestwood.
Right.
So Crestwood basically is going to get another win. So
Yeah, the winner clinches at least a share of the championship. Crestwood is only this is only their 4th winning season in the past 13 years, and so great story. Dearborn Heights. It's a great area. Great restaurants out there.
Best
and,
burger in Michigan, Miller's Bar. If you've never been there,
I've been
please
there.
go.
I have been there.
And I know you got your red coat loyalists.
Yeah.
But around here in Oakland County, but for my money, best burger in the state of
Good stuff.
Michigan.
It is good. It's
Miller's
very
Bar.
good.
No,
Yeah,
no,
Right
no,
off
do
of
like-
Michigan Avenue.
Yeah,
no
yeah,
menu, no
Yeah.
no checks. You just go up and it's all in the honor system.
Yeah, for sure.
I went in there the first time when I was like 8 or 9 years old with my dad, and I was like, "Where's the menu?" And my dad's like, "There isn't a menu. You
Right.
only come here to order one thing, and it's a hamburger or a cheeseburger."
I should meet John there early before and then I can go to Westland because it's not
Yeah.
too far from there, and then we can have a burger before I should do that. Maybe we'll shoot our stand-up into the thing at Miller's Bar. That would be
Whenever I
that
go
would
cover
be
games
fun.
in Dearborn, believe me, I'm going to Miller's afterwards.
All right, so that is the main event. You can look forward to seeing all those games we just talked about on State Champs Sunday 9 a.m. Fox Sports Detroit. We will have also a selected Grand Rapids game that we're kind of choosing. They shoot a few, and we're going to pick whatever we feel is the best one. But we do have some other games of interest around the state that we can talk about. And credit Maury sends me a list of a whole bunch. So
you're like 37.
yeah, exactly. So I just kind of randomly try to periodically
Unparalleled diligence.
reach ourselves around the state so that we're talking about areas maybe we don't necessarily talk about and teams that don't get an opportunity so much to talk about on this show, because what we invariably do is on the forecast we talk about a game that's going to come up, and then an extra point we talk about the game that was played. So those schools get double love, and I just think it's a fun way to do it. And one of the big ones, and maybe it's not as big as we thought it would be a few weeks ago because of how Oxford was playing at the time. But nevertheless, Oxford is 4-2, going to our number 5 team in the state, Clarkston, who is 6-0. Their win streak has reached 13 games and, a 16th straight playoff berth, right? Is that what they're going for now? And so, again, one of those Oakland County kind of brouhahas, and we'll see if the Wildcats can hang.
You wouldn't have thought at the beginning of the season that this would be a game that you would be looking forward to or thinking could be competitive.
Unless you own Yellow Pants.
Right,
but they have some good wins.
Unless you were a relative of Bud Riley. But, they're one of my big surprises.
They have some good wins this season.
They're most likely going to make the playoffs and could really play a spoiler in this league race.
They could get in at 5-4 for sure if that's how they finish.
They played West Bloomfield tough. They thrashed Southfield A&T.
Beat Romeo.
Yeah, they beat Romeo to start the season.
Yeah,
that's the only team that's beaten Romeo.
Yeah,
no one else has.
Yep.
They had a big bounce back last week too, because I'm sure the
lost
questions
to Adams.
happened. Yeah,
against
Adams and what was it? They pounded Stony Creek last week. So that's a good bounce back. But I mean, Clarkston, talk about a team getting on a roll. I mean, they're just pounding people now. It's kind of that unfair thing.
And at home too, they're just a
pounded
juggernaut.
And Jake Jensen's starting to come into his own as the quarterback,
Yep.
really starting to have confidence back in the pocket. Last year, they did all that damage, won a state title really without any presence under center.
Yes.
It was all defense and kind of smoke and mirrors
And
on
will,
offense.
pure will.
Yeah. But Jensen has come in, and he's got a bevy of receivers to throw the ball to. Joey Steegers is one of his favorites. And then obviously you got the two-headed monster in the two Jakes, Honstetter and Billette, who are, for bang for your buck, you don't have a better 1-2 punch in the state. And that's all due respect to Mangum and Nichols at Cass Tech and a slew of other great tailback tandems. And then the defense is playing great. We've talked about Dellinger and Spindler, but a guy I want to shout out, or a couple seniors I want to shout out, Brendan Barker, linebacker, who's just been Johnny on the spot and a number of big plays this year. And then Javier Suggs up front.
And the weird thing is for as much as we know that Clarkston has dominated in the playoffs and has dominated, really the discussion in Division I over the last 5 years, they have a chance to win their first outright division title since 2014.
Wow,
and you go, that's
crazy.
Weird.
It does seem
Because
weird.
last year they were tied for third, and Adams and West Bloomfield shared it.
Won the year before.
Yeah, in 2016, Southfield, A&T, and
A&T,
Clarkston.
I tied it, right.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, West Bloomfield won it, and then in 2014 they won it outright. So yeah, I had to triple check that just to make sure that I wasn't seeing something wrong.
Well,
but and that just proves how dominant they've been. They take a loss or two.
Yeah.
It seems like in the league season, and then they just turn it on after that.
And like the Catholic League Central Division, the MAC Red, the OAA Red is one of the best competitive leagues in the state. No game is a joke. This one, again, like I said, now has relevance. Oxford is good, and they beat good teams. So every game you got to get up for, and then you're ready. When it comes to playoff time, you're ready to go. You've seen everything you could possibly see. I mean, Bloomfield Hills, it wasn't that long ago. They were a good team.
Well, last year
right.
they were a really
They
good team.
lost 55-7 to Clarkston. I mean, that is a thrashing.
Yeah.
So
Bloomfield Hills was the reason Clarkston wasn't in that three-way tie, right? Because they lost. Yeah.
Josh Luther is another kid I want to shout out for Clarkson. Does it on both sides of the ball as a defensive back, does it as a wide receiver, and he's a special teams guy too. So kind of embodies that Clarkson spirit.
predictions to come at the end of the show. So we will talk about who we think will win these games. Another one that, speaking of the MAC Red, Macomb, Dakota, number 19 in the state, 5-1, taking on a 5-1 Romeo team, currently unranked. Obviously, if they get a win, they get a win. I know, and they get a game. They get a win this week. Well, I'm sure this week, because I wasn't on Extra Points, so I didn't get to have fun with you. But I'm sure 25 this week with Fortson. You had fallen out, and you put South Lyon in. You got Romeo.
I get some emails.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you did, and comments on the website, which is all good, man. But they're coming off, again, Grosse Pointe North, a program that is not typically one that you would say is weak. And I'm not even saying they're weak, but the fact that the Bulldogs won 49-0, that shows that they were ready to play.
I think they're reminding everybody, hey, remember us? Yeah. I mean, honestly, and you mentioned their only loss is Oxford. And that seems like an eternity ago.
And they won the state championship
not
too
too long ago.
Not that long ago. That's why I'm saying, remember us? Hi, look at.
Yep, hello.
You know what? They've won 5 games straight. Yeah. This is an intriguing matchup. Cougars had the bounce back. They needed to have the bounce back after the tough loss the week before against Chip Valley.
Yeah,
so
this
is a great one. This is a great matchup.
Well, and it's interesting title dynamic here because, if the Bulldogs win, then they set up a winner-take-all battle against Chip Valley next week.
Yep.
If Dakota wins, they can still get a share of the title if Romeo goes on and beats Chip Valley, so then it'd be a 3-way tie. So still a lot of stuff going on in there, and then obviously they all step out of conference in week 9. So pretty much in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see who comes out of the MAC Red and gets that coveted crown.
We've talked about Dakota and the Toko Magic and Dustin Solomon and some of their other playmakers. But over on Romeo's sideline, you got one of a real diamond in the rough in terms of college prospects on the defensive side of the ball in the state of Michigan and the Metro Detroit area, and Brock Horn. He's a guy that could be going Ivy League. I know Harvard just recently offered him, I think, in the last couple of weeks. And then some of the higher tier MAC schools and lower tier power conference schools have started to come around. I know he's got about a half dozen offers, Division I offers, and he's a kid that is just a force of nature, sideline to sideline, and he's relentless. He's intelligent, and he hits like a ton of bricks.
So there you go. This game was 61-33 last year, and Romeo was on the winning side of that one. So I don't know if we're going to get that many points, but when you look at last week's finals, and Romeo wins 49-0, and Dakota wins 33-0 over Utica Ford, we'll see what happens. So that is another one that we are going to pay attention to. Fenton and Flushing are getting together. A Flint Metro rivalry that is always fun. And again, you talk about shootouts. I think last year was 59-39 was the score. And of course, that's. No, wait, that was last week. Wait, I had
52-36.
There you go.
Last
Thank
week.
you, thank you. That was like 52-35, or maybe it was 36. But that was when Fenton had Josh Sarnato, who was a Mr. Football candidate. I don't expect Fenton to put up 52 or 50 anything. However, they are having a good season, a very quiet good season.
Well, and the interesting thing is both these teams lost their quarterback to Grand Valley. They're both on the roster at Grand Valley, so they don't have them anymore. And you mentioned Josh Sarnata and Flushing lost Cal Endicott. Flushing also lost
Aiden Harrison,
who
transferred to Missouri.
Transferred to New Lothrop. So lost some firepower. And when you're dealing with, getting a new quarterback into the system, probably part of the reason for the early season stumbles. Flushing lost 16-13 to Swartz Creek, who's actually the leader in the clubhouse right now in the Flint Metro. Fenton lost to Brandon 26-21 in week 1.
Flushing beat up on Brandon.
Yeah.
Ortonville Brandon. Yeah, a couple weeks. 59-39. That was where that score came from. So
Fenton's won or shared the Flint Metro title each of the last 7 seasons, but they're, like I said, Swartz Creek is kind of the leader in the clubhouse. Last year,
and that's who Fenton has next week.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And so we could have a fast finish. Yep.
Swartz Creek. Yes.
The Dragons.
Yes. Cade Andrews is running the ball really well for Flushing. This year he had 223 yards in that Ortonville game. I had noticed. Again, this is probably going to decide the Flint Metro. Although Swartz Creek is in that conversation too. But if Fenton should win that one, then. Or if Flushing should win that one, then they should be there. So anyway, we'll see how it works out, but that's another one that we're paying attention to. Three Rivers and Edwardsburg are getting together. They are both 6-0. Yeah. And these are teams that are both having phenomenal years, and both coming off 50-plus point
phenomenal
efforts.
It's
It's
funny. You take a look. You look at the scores. You're doing the prep and everything, and you're like, wow, the Wildcats have outscored their opposition 203-36. That's nuts.
So you flip the page.
And then you flip the page and you look at the Eddies, 349-21.
Yeah,
55 points a game.
I don't know. I was taking my calculator out, even though it's right there. You're adding it up, going, it's crazy. So, two teams that have been dominant on both sides of the ball. I mean, what more can you ask for? 6-0. As you said, I mean, there's a history there with both of these programs.
Yeah.
What a dandy.
Yeah,
what a dandy.
And Edwardsburg had that long conference winning streak, and Three Rivers beat them last year.
21-18.
Now they come home and for this game, and so you know that there are going to be a lot of people interested in what's going on, and they're going to. I'm sure they had bulletin board material all week.
Well, and Jalen Hivlin, who was the Three Rivers quarterback, who was kind of the Kalamazoo area player of the year last year, missed 3 maybe weeks, I think, early in the season this year, and got back, I think, 2 weeks ago against Pawpaw. So he's, hopefully he's up to speed, because you kind of want this to be everybody has all the bullets they have available to them kind of matchup, because you kind of want this to be like it was last year, because, Three Rivers gets the regular season meeting, and the Eddies still win the conference title, and then the Eddies get revenge in the playoffs in another one of their long runs to the semis.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'd say that, again, this has been a Three Rivers team that's been kind of climbing. Edwards and been on top. So it's D4 football. So if you were curious as to where they fit in the playoffs, they both are D4 teams. And again, it was just last year that the Eddies went all the way to the state final, lost to Grand Rapids Catholic Central 42-31. Good game. That's always the Friday night cap did the 4 games. So
Well, the Eddies have been to the semis in 2010, 2014, 2016,
Yeah,
and then to the finals last year. So,
Yeah.
like I said, it's been a decade. They lost to Grand Rapids Catholic Central twice, South Christian once, Muskegon once. So, yeah, those are not bad teams. Those are worthwhile losses. They're 85-14 since 2010. So, yeah, it's been a stretch for both of these schools where they've been dominant.
the Wolverine Conference. So, so that's going to be a good one, and we'll talk about how that one turns out.
Going
at
up
the
north
end.
now.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to go up north now, exactly, because Traverse City St. Francis, you talk about proud programs, team that has had numerous Spartans.
Lots of bullets.
Yes, exactly. come out of that defense. 6-0 on the year. They're going to Sheboygan.
That's
who
my
is
squad.
4-2.
Sheboygan is my
All right,
squad.
so talk about
I spent my summers as a child in Sheboygan, Michigan, going to Camp Walden.
So where is Sheboygan exactly?
It's about a half hour from the UP, Mackinac Island.
Got it.
3 different guys pulled their hands
Yeah,
up, too.
yeah, of
That
course,
just,
I know,
we
exactly.
just all react.
And the Chiefs are
So
led
it's
by
about
Coach.
center, it's about top of the lower peninsula,
Yeah.
slightly east.
Yes.
And it's a great little town and a lot of charm, and they take a lot of pride in their sports, period.
Yeah.
And Coach Schultz does a great job with those Chiefs. And, they're sitting 4-2 right now. They won their homecoming game last week.
Started 0-2. So
Yeah.
they've won 4 straight.
Yep.
And they got a nice tailback in Tristan Schley. I know he had about a $175, 3 touchdowns last week in the homecoming victory. So things are looking up.
You know
for
what's
the
interesting,
Chiefs.
Bernie, about this one too? To me, is if Sheboygan brings it, Traverse City has not been. St. Francis hasn't been in a close game.
It hasn't
this
been
year.
tested this year.
They have pounded every. I mean, their closest margin of victory is 35 points, 5 touchdowns. So if Sheboygan brings it, how does that test? How does that play out? So that'll be intriguing.
I think there still is a Bulla there.
Is there a bullet?
Oh,
not
I'm
sure.
convinced there is.
Yeah.
and
I'm sure there
and
are
there are
4 or
probably
5
38 in the
someplace.
waiting.
Okay.
Well, and if Sheboygan, after this week, Sheboygan gets the other 4-1 team in the conference, Kingsley, which got Tim Wooer, who had been at Traverse City West for several years, to come back because he'd really had them on a roll about a decade ago. Like I said, Sheboygan started 0-2. They haven't made the playoffs since 2013, and they were 9-26 over the last 4 seasons. So to have a start like this, that part is nice. But to be in the league race, this is really the first time since joining this conference that they've actually been part of the discussion. They've not really been very good because they were an independent for a while after the Straits Area Conference broke up in 2008. So they were kind of just floating around, and it's hard when you play a schedule like that to really know what the level of competition is because the teams change every year based on who's available. But yeah, they really haven't, since joining the Northern Michigan Football League, they really haven't been part of the conversation. So for them to have a 2-week stretch playing the top 2 teams in the league with a chance of getting a share of the title still, that's pretty cool for them.
No doubt. All right, some other games that we were keeping an eye on. Grass Lake is 6-0. They're taking on a 5-1 Napoleon team, and we can keep in the map. Grass Lake about right here. It's between Ann Arbor and Jackson. So I just actually had to pull it up because I forgot exactly if it was more towards Lansing or more towards Jackson, but it's close to Jackson. Yeah. Again, one of those teams we haven't had a chance to talk about this year. However, they're undefeated.
Grass Lake is kind of like what we were just talking about with St. Francis in the regard that they had been pounding everybody, and they got their first big test last year, and they passed it.
Last week?
Yeah, excuse me,
it's okay.
last week, and they beat Michigan Center 14-10. So, if you're one of those people that believe into that, how are you going to react when somebody punches you back?
Right.
They responded. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this week with a team. The Pirates have won 5 straight, and they really seem to be excelling right now. So timing is everything, I think, in a game like this.
Well, this is one of those good bounce-back seasons for a team in Grass Lake that program has been pretty consistent over the last decade or so. They were 5-4 last year and missed the playoffs for the first time in 12 years, and so that was kind of an odd feeling for them.
Yeah.
And obviously come back with 6 straight wins. They've won at least a share of 4 of the last 7 titles in the Cascades Conference.
And they can
but they haven't won it outright since
They can clinch
2011.
it this week if they win this game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, I don't even know where Napoleon, Michigan is, but I'm assuming
And
it's right near there.
They're
I'm
ranked number
assuming.
6 in Division 6 right now by the AP.
Yeah, I'm talking about the city.
Oh, okay.
I'm just looking to see where I've never been to Napoleon either.
It's in Michigan.
Napoleon's on
So,
the
yeah.
west. I think it's on the west side.
No, I'm pulling it up right. It's not far from Grass Lake. It looks like south of Grass Lake, above Brooklyn. So not too far from MIS. But again, it's kind of that area of the state that we just not a lot of stuff happens out there. So
you think Lou would spring for us to have a little map graphic so we can just point at it? On
what? I think Kevin,
do our geography.
We do remotes.
Kevin's going to throw darts at my hand. I'm going to hold my hand up. And he's going to fire
We're
darts.
We're going to throw
at
it to
my
Kevin,
hand.
who's actually in Grass Lake.
Maybe we'll put one right here. We'll hang up a map.
Do some
behind us.
remotes coming live from the forecast from Napoleon next week.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Spring Lake is 5-1. Grand Rapids Catholic Central is 5-1. Grand Rapids Catholic Central, another team with a tremendous amount of success, the defending state champions. We mentioned them earlier. And a Spring Lake team that I think
out of nowhere
is really making hay. And maybe Grand Rapids Catholic Central is not the juggernaut maybe they have been in the past. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, their only
losses to Saline by 10 points on the road
in
a game that they were in the fourth quarter. Maybe they're a tick below some of those teams that have just dominated all the way through the finals, but they're certainly a contender this year.
Yeah.
But Spring Lake had lost. Spring Lake had lost 16 of their last 18 games coming into this season. So I don't think anybody expected a 5-0 start from them. Now, they lost their first last week to Grand Rapids West Catholic. Yeah, it was another contender in that league.
Yeah.
And, if they want to make the playoffs for the first time since 2014, they got to beat either Catholic Central or a 3-3 Allendale team or a Holland Christian team in the non-conference at the end of the season that's 4-2. So it's still doable. It's still kind of a daunting stretch for them. But that's another one of those good stories where a team figures it out. And you like to see it when, a team that isn't expected, because as we've said before, when you just get the same old story the same year after year, and you get the same contenders and you get the same people winning it,
exactly,
it's no fun.
No,
usual suspects.
Yeah, but when you get a team like Spring Lake that can kind of pop up out of nowhere and all of a sudden, give like a Sheboygan did, or give the normal contenders a run for their money, it's fun. Even if they don't pull it off, it's at least it makes the season interesting.
Absolutely. And West Catholic, another team that obviously is one of the best every single year. They're going to play West Catholic the week after next. Grand Rapids Catholic Central is. So
a big storyline in this game is Caleb Montgomery, the quarterback, the star quarterback for Spring Lake that got some type of non-contact injury a couple weeks ago. He missed the West Catholic game. So that's, I'm not, you can't live on excuses.
Yeah.
It's got to be next man up. But their one loss was without their star quarterback. Not sure what his status is going forward, but hopefully, he can get back up on that horse and be riding Spring Lake to some more victories. But I think whether he's in the lineup this week will kind of be an indicator whether or not they can compete with a team like GRCC.
Absolutely. So we got one more to get to, and that is a team that certainly is not unfamiliar with winning titles, and that's East Grand Rapids. Again, a team that kind of had a little bit of a lull when Peter Sturzma took the Hope College job. Last year, obviously, rolled. Really, I was shocked when they lost to Cedar Springs in the playoffs. It was 41-40. It was a heck of a game, but they were undefeated going into that one. This year, they have a couple of losses. Zeeland East is a much better team than they have been in the past. And, in fact, they lost to Catholic Central just, I think it was 17-13 or something was the score to Grand Rapids Catholic Central. So Zeeland East is for real. Muskegon, what are we going to say?
They were actually leading by double digits.
Okay.
2 touchdowns in that Muskegon game. And that was the one where we kind of said it's not, a true definition of a trap game.
Right.
But it's one where it's hard to get up every week. And,
this is gold football we're talking here. And again, Middleville was undefeated until they lost to Grand Rapids Christian last week.
East Grand Rapids started 1-2 with those 2 losses, and they've run off 3 straight. But yeah, as you mentioned, 9-point loss to Zeeland East, who is a very good Zeeland East team, and 49-21 against Muskegon. So they were up, I think, 21-7. I think at that point.
Yeah, it was 42 straight points, wasn't
it?
I
think so.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
And they were up in the Zeeland East game, too. So that's been one where that's probably the thing that they've focused on most over the last couple of weeks is kind of finishing out games at the end.
And sometimes losing like that in the first week is a real character builder, because you can kind of see, okay, maybe we got complacent or whatever, and, now they obviously turned it on. They haven't
They've been able to finish at 108
Boston.
points in the last 3 weeks, the 3-week winning streak. So they've certainly met, to your point, they've been able to finish.
And Middleville is kind of one of those teams like we've talked about. It's been kind of a theme over the last couple of games that we've talked about. In Middleville, they hadn't won 5 games since 2011. Haven't made the playoffs since 2010. So for them to be 5-0, they've been 14-40 over the last 6 seasons, and they were 2-7 last year. So again, this is one of those teams that kind of popped up out of nowhere and is giving some of the big boys a run for their money.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see. They've never had much success against East Grand Rapids. There are a lot of teams who could say that very same thing.
Right.
So
especially in East Grand Rapids, which is such a tough place to play.
Very hard to play. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a timeout. We're going to flip the order this week on the forecast. I'm going to have Alan True be in the second segment, so we're going to come back. He is actually waiting on the line right now, so we are going to bring him in. We're going to talk about this week's Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report. He's got 4 guys, a couple we've already mentioned in the show. So we're going to talk about them, and we'll probably mention at least one of them again when we talk about the Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race. So stick around. We will be right back.
My passion is architecture. I don't want to sit around passively studying. I need to create. In our architecture studios at Lawrence Tech, we collaborate with students, faculty, and professionals from around the world. And from day one, we design using the same industry standard software that architecture firms use. I really feel like I'm designing my own future here. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
Today, let's talk about a new rule for the soccer season. There's a change in soccer rules this year on plays where a defender denies an obvious goal scoring opportunity within their own penalty area. The penalty has been amended depending on whether or not the referee determines that the defensive player was attempting to play the ball when committing the foul. If so, the defender will receive a yellow card rather than a red card, and a penalty kick will be awarded. Here are a couple examples where the defender was playing the ball, which now results in a yellow card. This eliminates the previous double jeopardy on the play, a PK, and a red card. Of course, in those circumstances where there was no attempt to play the ball, the defender is still disqualified. Here's an example of a play where a red card would be issued. This brings the high school rule in line with college and international rules. For more information about soccer, visit the MHSAA website.
You ready, Darius?
Let's do it. Anybody want an autograph?
Autograph? We're here for the stuffed crust pizza.
Stuffed crust pizza? Hey, who do you think you are? End of the line, pal.
Flavor fanatics love stuffing their faces with our stuffed flavored crust. Get one for only $2 more on any large original round pizza.
Hungry?
Howie! All right, welcome back to the State Champs football forecast for Week 7. Alan True, as you see right there, is on the horn. He is here for the Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report. And actually, a couple of the games. Alan, first off, how you doing?
Doing well.
All right. Yep. Good to have you again. We really do appreciate your insight and coming in on the show and being flexible with your time and all of that. A couple of the games that we previewed, we talked about a couple of these guys already. We'll start with Josh DeBerry. And at De La Salle, again, I list him as a wide receiver, but again, he plays so many different positions and probably could at the next level. What do you see when we see just big play after big play?
Yeah, I think he's probably going to be a quarterback at the next level.
Okay.
Had 7 interceptions as a junior, but I think when you look at quarterback recruits, a lot of the time other schools stay away from them. So it's hard for them to sometimes get a lot of film. So you end up watching a lot of offensive film on those guys. And he's obviously showing a lot of speed and athleticism and ball skills this year. I think he's taken his game to another level on the offensive side of the ball. And that's where you see some new schools starting to come in and pick up on him a little bit. I think he might be one of the more underappreciated seniors in the state of Michigan. The guy's making a lot of plays. He's doing it against good schools. You watch that game against Muskegon.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best players on the field. So he just got offered by Wake Forest. He just visited Northwestern, and they're high on the list right now. That's the school I'm riding with. I think he's going to end up a Wildcat.
Okay.
But Michigan State is poking around a little bit. I've heard Tennessee's coming in. It would not surprise me to see that kid get a couple more offers. I think he was maybe a guy who slid under the radar a little bit. He didn't do a lot of camps, but you turn the film on from last year and this year, and I think it stacks up with just about anybody else in the state.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the kids, like we were just talking off air about, you have these combine kids and camp kids that go and impress, and some of the coaches will be like,
but they've never done anything as a high school football player.
Yeah, right.
And you get a kid like DeBerry who does everything as a high school football player and wins state titles and wins Catholic League titles, and it's until midway through his senior year until the big boys start knocking on his door.
Yeah, that just happens sometimes. That's the way recruiting goes now. But I think the myth is that you need to do all these camps to get recruited. I think that you can still get recruited. It just takes longer. People ask me now. I've been asked a couple of times this year, who's this year's Ladarius Jefferson, guy that pops up as a senior and kind of rises up to, he was committed to UCF and he ends up going to Michigan State. Josh DeBerry's probably one of the first names you would say that he might be that guy.
Jefferson's earning time as a true freshman in that backfield.
Yeah, got a touchdown. And we were making the comparison too to like a Grant Perry, who all of a sudden his senior, even though he had state titles and his film was really good, a little smaller.
Yeah, Northwestern came in the end, and then Michigan came in.
He actually committed to Northwestern on our signing day special, and it wasn't long after that he was a Michigan Wolverine.
I think he committed to Michigan on Super Bowl Sunday. I remember writing that at halftime of the Super Bowl. So thanks, Grant.
I know.
But another guy, Vincent Gray, ends up going to Michigan late. I think Josh is very comparable to that situation as well.
Well, another team we talked about earlier in the show, and again, what a season for the Muskegon quarterback, Cameron Martinez. It just seems like the Big Reds haven't lost a beat since the aforementioned Ladarius Jefferson is now at the next level. What's going on with Cameron?
Yeah, so it takes a lot to go from a Mr. Football Michigan State recruit and not miss a beat. So that tells you what Cameron brings to the table. A little bit different style of player. Ladarius was more of a bulldozer. Cameron's a guy who can make a lot of plays happen in space. And again, we talked about, watching Josh in that De La Salle game. Cameron Martinez scores 5 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Runs for well over 200 yards in that game. Does, something similar against King. So those were the first 2 games where he was playing at that level. Remember, he was playing at Division, I think 7 or 8 prior to that. So people, 8. So people wondered, how's he going to do against that level of competition? He answered those questions quickly. So Northwestern just offered him over the weekend. He was down there with Josh. And I think that once the film from this year at Muskegon comes out, it's going to explode for him. So I'd have to think the regional powers, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, they're all recruiting him already. I'd have to think he'll get a good number of those offers. But Northwestern was a big start for him because I think that's his first Big Ten offer.
And all projected Indiana and all at quarterback?
I think right now it's more athlete.
Okay.
I think he's going to have to go to camp at some of those schools and show that he can throw the football well enough to play quarterback at those schools. But Northwestern runs a spread out type of offense. They run their quarterback a lot. Indiana's the same. I could see him being a quarterback for those schools. But I think you have a kid who's athletic enough to play other positions if you need him to. Height will probably be a little bit of a factor too in that.
Port Huron Northern's got a defensive end, Braden McGregor. What's up with Braden?
Well, he just got offered by Ohio State today.
Woo!
And that comes after he's already has Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Notre Dame. So he's about 1,000 on all of the Midwest schools. Now we'll see if any of the SEC and Pac-12 schools come in. I'd have to think so. Very outstanding athlete at 6'5", almost 240 pounds. Some of our Michigan-based writers went and saw him this year, and they thought he was every bit as good as Aiden Hutchinson was at the same age, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
Braden's a multi-sport guy, also plays tight end, so you like to see those athletic qualities, but has a chance to bulk up and be, I think, your classic Big Ten type of defensive end. So I don't know if I have a leaning quite on him yet. It seems like it was going to be Michigan. Seems like he really liked Notre Dame when he visited, and now Ohio State's jumped in. So long way to go in that one. It's going to be an interesting recruitment.
Yeah, I know. I read that he was shocked wherever that Michigan had come in and actually made an offer. And, again,
he's only a junior.
That's what I'm saying. He's coming into his own. And teams are jumping in. They see that raw ability, and they want to coach it.
Yeah, and he started off with, I think, Central Michigan and Toledo were his first 2 offers. He's obviously very excited to get those, and there haven't been a ton of D1 guys coming out of Port Huron Northern. So I think when the big boys started coming in, it did surprise him a little bit. But he's definitely deserving of all of those.
Yeah, it's got the blonde locks and all that flowing out of the helmet and all that. So yeah, he'll be rocking that at the next level. Walled Lake Central, and I know Scott, you're high on this guy, Blake Nelson.
Because he's only a sophomore,
Yep.
And unfortunately, he's being hidden by the fact that he's at Walled Lake Central. Again, all due respect to Coach Meyer and that staff that do a very good job, and over the years have had teams that have made long runs. But since Blake got there, the team hasn't really been anything that special, and as a result, there's no attention being paid to him or his team. So he's really kind of in the shadows.
Yeah, but I think some schools are starting to get on him a little bit more. Kentucky offered him in the offseason, so that helped him get started. He says he's still hearing from a lot of the Big Ten schools. He's supposed to be visiting Michigan State here pretty soon. He's trying to get back up to Michigan. Indiana's recruited him. So I spoke to him last night, and he listed all these schools that he was trying to go visit. So it took a little bit of time, but like you said, he's only a sophomore, and I think he's been pretty active on the camp circuit, and that's helped him get out a little bit more as well. So look out for him. I mentioned him just because we've talked about some 2021s on this show. We've talked about the Clarkston kids and Donovan Edwards and those guys. Haven't gotten to Blake yet, and I think there's a chance that before it's all said and done, he's mentioned in the same breath with those guys. So about 6'4". Yeah, an athletic, right?
He's just bursting with potential, and he's a character kid. He's the type of kid that I get an email or a Twitter message every time I've written about him or spoken about him, writing me to thank me for helping getting his name out. And I've literally gotten like 4 or 5 of them since the start of the year. So it shows you what kind of kid he is, how diligent he is at his craft. And, Alan, tell me what you think. I know right now he's being looked at as a tight end, and he's definitely got the tools to stretch the field. But, could you also see him possibly going to the next level as a defensive end, as a guy coming off the edge?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 6'4", long arms, athletic. You could go a lot of ways there. So I think it just depends on who's recruiting him. It's becoming more rare to find high-end tight end prospects, though. It's just that's not a position that gets developed as much. So even right now, if we try to talk about who are the top tight end prospects around the state, we'd have a hard time naming, getting to 5 of them. Can we get to 10? Probably not. So that might be a good situation for him to be recruited there. But another premium is on sacking the quarterback, getting heat on the passer. That everybody wants that now. So I could see that happening. As of now, I think schools are just saying, here's a big athletic kid. Let's recruit him, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. We could probably name 10 tight ends before you know it. Yeah. Who were rocking it. Right now, it just seems to be.
It ebbs and flows.
Yeah, it's the age of the lineman right now in the trenches here.
Just position-wise, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes you got to, like we have had a great run of linemen and linebackers lately, but, maybe the last couple of years, you take a step back and guys like, Nelson that are tight end studs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking to a Division I coach, and they need a tight end recruit, and they said, who are some big receivers that we can convert into a tight end? Right. And that's becoming what it is. They're going to put these guys in the slot. They're going to move them outside. So they'd rather take a big receiver that maybe isn't quite fast enough to play receiver at the Division I level, make him into a tight end.
And we're seeing now, because the linemen are so athletic, you're seeing coaches put them in games in tight end positions, especially in red zones and short field situations, so that in a way they're kind of showcasing these kids to say, hey, you don't have to limit them to, being on the line. These kids are so athletic and go and get the ball.
That's why there's been a premium on outside linebacker in the last 5-6 years, because of the trends that are developing at the next level and the next level. These outside linebackers need to be able to run like deer. They need to kind of almost be like a tight end or a wide receiver on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, then you look at a school like Iowa that continuously puts tight ends in the NFL. Right. It's because they run a traditional tight end still. So those guys still have a place in the game. So we'll see what happens with Blake. I think he could develop into a true tight end, but I think the options are wide open for him to be a lot of things.
Right on. Well, Alan, where are you this weekend?
I'm planning on going to Spring Lake, Grand Rapids Catholic Central.
We talked about that game a little while ago.
Yeah, Spring Lake is making some noise over here on this side of the state. They're the surprise over here, and Catholic Central's got a sophomore receiver named Jace Williams, also a really good basketball player. So chance to see him this weekend. As long as it's not 35 and raining, I'll be out there.
And I appreciate the plug because we have a state champs basketball showcase we'll be doing on December 22nd. Grand Rapids Catholic Central will be playing Canton in our main event, so we'll get a chance to see him live here at Lawrence Tech.
Awesome. See, I knew that. So I helped
I
you
haven't
out.
even made it public yet, so until just now that I said that we're doing this, but that's all coming soon because we got the contracts, and that's what we're waiting on. So we'll have fun there, and thanks again for doing this. Of course, you can watch Alan True on our recruit reports on both our State Champs Michigan and Indiana shows. We appreciate that. Again, the Indiana hype is kind of starting to happen. We're starting to get feedback, and people are talking about it. People are contacting Lawrence Tech about opportunities and things like that. So you are one that we can say is helping us get the word out there and kind of get our kind of feet wet there in Indiana, so we appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Glad it's going well. And hey, the more that I can see my own face on TV, obviously, no one likes that. I appreciate
the pride and joy of the
Yes,
Grand Rapids.
Yes, he moonlights as a comedian also, ladies and gentlemen. So follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow, and it's just Alan True now. It's no longer A True, just Alan True at 247.
TRIEU.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, just my name. So.
Okay. And it's 247sports.com, right?
Yes,
Okay.
247sports.com is where you could find all of our work and where you can find the rankings, and you can go complain to me on Twitter about those.
And you and Steve Wiltfong, you guys have a podcast now that you do once in a while, right?
We do. It's a Big Ten podcast. It's called the Notorious B1G podcast.
Yes.
I came up with that name. Steve did.
It's great. It's great. How can we check it out?
Yeah, no. We tweet it every week. It's if you search for it, it comes up on iTunes, and we also embed it on 24/7. But iTunes is probably the way most people find it. And we've had a couple of Big Ten head coaches come on, and so we talk about recruiting in the conference every week.
Fantastic. All right, so a lot of good stuff out there, Alan True. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, see ya. So we thank Alan True for that. We're going to take another timeout. We're going to come back. We're going to talk just briefly about Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race. No changes this week, and then we'll get into our predictions. So we'll do that next. So stick with us. The football forecast winds up.
I want to be a dermatologist, and though a lot of universities tried to recruit me for basketball, Lawrence Tech had the science curriculum that I wanted. LTU's Southfield campus is a great place to learn, and the classes are small enough that I don't have to wait for office hours to talk to my professors. They're usually right by my side, challenging me and guiding me toward a successful future. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
Fundraising should be fresh, flavorful, and simple. We have the perfect solution at Hungry Howie's, Dough Raiser. Your team or school can sell paper pizza certificates that can be redeemed for one medium pizza at participating locations.
Hungry Howie's makes it easy. It's just a little mini pizza box, and we make lots of money, lots of dough.
Go to doughraiser.com to learn more and sign up. Your next fundraiser comes with flavored crust. Welcome to Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser.
All right, welcome back. Our final segment here of the football forecast. Kevin Trzynski is on a tight timeline, so we've got to get this done. Now, again, these things always run so long. I scheduled Alan for an hour after we started, and it's like we hadn't even got to the second segment yet. So that's just how we roll here. They're long. Hopefully you enjoy it.
We do deep dives.
Yes, deep dives. And again, this is way better than when we used to do 97.1 because we get 10 minutes
by
and then we
commercials.
stopped. And then, we never were able to.
always kind of bumped because of the Lions or
we
the
had
Red
to get,
Wings or the
yes.
Pistons.
And just as far as subjects, we had to move on. We always had to get to the next thing. So we never got a chance to really talk in depth as we like to do. And so hopefully you like it too. So here's what's happening in our Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race. No changes this week. There was debate. We decided to hold off again. I was coming off seeing Julian Barnett for Belleville score 2 touchdowns, make big plays. They beat Fordson. They remain undefeated on the year. Again, they do it in kind of last-second fashion. Actually, Fordson had a chance to tie in the last few seconds. But again, a good team they were going up against, and he was the reason that they won. So he is right there on the cusp, playing his way back in. There are some other guys on our watch list who I have to get kind of, Keegan Kohler is a kid that kind of started out super hot, then maybe wasn't, but he's played a lot better. Steve Walker at Canton. Canton is lost a couple of games, but he has still been an amazing back. And there are some guys on our list that,
I would almost throw this out here just for debate, and we
yes,
can talk
go
about
ahead.
it off the air and as we go forward next year. I'd almost consider moving a guy like Marvin Grant, who's a safety, into the Anvil Award discussion.
Right.
Because in the safety
right.
Yeah. And the safety, can sometimes really get lost. And in reality, on a football team, whether you're talking the pros, high school or college, that quarterback on the back end of a defense, that free safety, that strong safety is so integral to that team having success.
And he's one of the best in the nation.
He's going to Purdue. He's going to Purdue.
He's real deal, Holyfield, no question.
Just like the linebackers and linemen are kind of handicapped. I think maybe the safeties
are
first
too. With that. Yeah, you're right. And usually those guys, those DBs, are always playing wide receiver at the same time.
Marvin's not.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So or running back, exactly. So you see them, and that's why they're always in the Mr. Football discussion.
Yeah.
So, but you're right.
And Marvin's a great combination of a guy that is a ball hawk and is going to go find the ball, but he's going to lay the wood if he's coming after you to put the tackle down.
Yeah, and again, we've had a hard time being able to judge King or Cass Tech over the last several weeks just because of the competition they're playing. They're just eating teams alive, and it makes it very difficult to say whether they would be in the game later. You can't really even measure stats. It's really hard, but when the teams are as dominant as they are, it's almost impossible to think about pulling someone off. I will credit, the Cass Tech family that they have voted for Jaron Mangum. He is second on our list. Sam Johnson is still leading with about 2,000 more than Jaron is right now, and that's
and Sam was really the only bright spot for Walled Lake Western last week, and they're pretty disheartening loss to Lakeland 28-7. But Sam made it a game and put that team on his shoulders, at least at the early part of the first half and into the second half. And he threw for about 230, ran in a 15-yard touchdown, and did what you expect a Boston College bound quarterback to do. You just need the other parts of that lineup to kind of do their job. But it wasn't that 28-7 loss wasn't Sam Johnson's fault. I don't think that should go against him in our football Mr. Football race.
We do want to send just a word of caution to Night Nation out there that although Oak Park is still what they are, and they are undefeated on the year, correct? They have not lost a game yet. So, but is DeJuan Mathis having the kind of season so far, just in terms of, what a big reason why?
He's obviously the motor that the offense runs on, but I think that the 6-0 start and the prospect of Oak Park having that signature season that we've been expecting under Coach Carter, and he's played a role in it.
Yes,
but I don't know if he's played any bigger role than the running backs, Phil Stewart, and then now Toriano Richardson's back and healthy.
Right.
So you got that fire and ice,
Justin Rogers on the defensive
and then on the
side.
defensive line, defensive side of the ball, and then in the secondary with guys like Jalen Fielder. So it's kind of an equal opportunity. Success for Oak Park. Everyone's doing it.
Right. And when it comes to awards, who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For those guys in Oak Park, they want to have it where everyone is contributing. There isn't one guy maybe who's doing it, and DeJuan Mathis is doing enough to win right now, and that's why
this isn't like the Madison Heights Madison where it's like they
are
are who they are the last 2 years because of Austin.
Yeah. Right. And Isaac Van Dyke, what he's done in Harlem West Ottawa. So we know that over the next few weeks there are going to be some big games that a lot of these kids are going to be playing in, especially when you get King and Cass together and some of the crossovers that you have at the end of the season in divisions like the OAA. So we're going to be able to hear more of that quickly. I do want to make a point. Sean does our Hungry Howie's football report every week on state champs. And so this week we talked a little bit about two teams that competed in the state finals last year, being Harrison and Muskegon, but two players that were not obviously on the same team as Cameron Martinez is new to Muskegon. We just talked about on the recruit report. Roderick Herther was there last year, and he is having a phenomenal season.
Well, and you talk about making your case as the season progresses.
Yes.
This is a guy that had 37 carries, 286 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Next. Yeah, you know what I mean? At that point in time, I don't know if anybody wants to stand up and make an argument.
When you average 7.3 yards a carry and then you increase that average after a game, yeah, that's hard to do at that point of the season.
And you go to Northwestern as a cornerback. He's another one of these kids that like Julian Barnett, who I've spoken about the last couple of weeks, and he's going to Michigan State as a cornerback.
Right.
But I could easily foresee him going to the Big Ten and making an impression as a wide receiver. Yeah. Same thing for Roderick Hurd going over to Evanston and the Wildcats, because this is a kid that is as dynamite on the offensive side of the ball as he is a lockdown corner on the defensive side of the ball, and he uses that sprinter speed and that just natural instinct that he has, really to help him, whether it's as a cornerback, containing wide receivers on the other side of the ball, or as a running back breaking through into the open field. And in space, there are few better than Roderick Hurd.
Well, and you also mentioned Cameron Martinez at Muskegon. This isn't a guy
also is being recruited by Northwestern.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, okay, he had 3 rushing touchdowns and threw a touchdown. It isn't like a 1-yard dive, a 2-yard dive. No, he's going for 65. He's going for 52. He's going for 34. Electric, this is a guy, Matt, I want to give proper credit. I think you were banging his drum early on in the season and everything.
Before we start, he was.
Week after week after week, he keeps showing everybody.
And he ran for 1,600 last year, 1,600 yards and I think 26 touchdowns. And another thing that's
for Muskegon Catholic Central.
No, I'm sorry. I was talking about Roderick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we're talking about.
I'm sorry. We
that's all right. No, go ahead.
But Roderick Hurd rushed for 1,600 yards and 26 touchdowns last year. And another thing that's kind of special about his story in 2018 is that he will be the last superstar in that lineage at Farmington Hills Harrison, where there's been a plethora of big-time performers on the gridiron.
That is right.
Starting back when John Harrington got there in the 70s, all the way through the new millennium.
The Mill Coleman era.
2 decades into the new millennium now, and he'll be that last guy.
Yep.
So kind of like maybe John Miller was the first guy, not the first guy that John coached that was an all-state player, but the first guy to really make an impression
game changer
on what Farmington Hills Harrison was all about.
John Miller.
In the early 80s. Roderick Hurd's kind of doing it at the twilight of the Harrison football run, and he'll be remembered with those guys, with the Devin Funcheses and the Aaron Burbridges and the Mill Colemans.
Yep, the Ventos. Yeah, absolutely. And we had Ogie Ogofu last year.
Ogie will definitely be in there. Khalid Kareem, who's at Notre Dame right now.
Exactly, making hay. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. We all have to remember that this is the final round for Farmington Hills Harrison.
Final go round, and it's bittersweet, but hopefully they can not just finish this year, but finish with some flair and make another run like they did last year and ended their season at Ford
It'll be
Field.
interesting when they do kind of finally come down and what division they're going to be in. I don't know when that decision finally gets made. I don't know. Probably, I guess, when they look at the majority of teams. I don't know. Or it's a special exemption whether they're just in 3 or 6. Is that correct?
I think it's 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Is it just 4? Okay. I didn't know where their population is now. So.
Well, again, this is an issue about what their count was at the end of last year compared to what their count is this year.
Which is significantly lower.
Their status is being based on the count they had in 2000 at the end of 18 as opposed to where they are in the 18-19.
Right. So being their last season, there are several who have already gone to North Farmington.
I think there's only like 500 kids or 600 kids left in that school right now.
Yeah, so that sounds like D4. That sounds about right. Anyway, so that's what's happening with the race right now. You can vote for your guys right now. I do want to give another shout out to Jerron McKinney, the River Rouge, who had a big, wipeout of Harper Woods. But Corey Graham didn't play. He's hurt or he's got some issue.
No,
right?
It was ineligibility.
Ineligible. Yeah, they're talking about his transfer eligibility and stuff. But Jerron is just 400 votes behind Mangum in third. So
and their backup didn't play either.
Yeah.
So they were down to a third string.
About this in the show
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. I wasn't here, so I did listen. But
Sean held it down.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm no Lauren.
Oh,
I'm no Lauren Plant.
Please. Although people think I'm Sean Legion.
I've gotten that before. Yes, I've gotten that
places
before.
I go, they go. Sean,
you put glasses on?
Yeah, they do. They think I'm him.
Lightens his hair a little bit.
I think it has something to do with the voice. All right, so let's move on. We're going to get to predictions. We're going to wrap up this particular show of the Forecast. So we always work from back to front. So we'll start with the last game we talked about. That was Middleville and East Grand Rapids. Middleville coming in with a better record. East Grand Rapids, again, with some impressive wins this season. They've had a couple of back-to-back really good seasons. They're at home. I love East Grand Rapids at home always. I'm going to go East Grand Rapids.
EGR.
Pioneers.
Spring Lake, who Alan talked about, is the game he's going to be at. They're taking on Grand Rapids Catholic Central. GRCC and their new home now over the last couple of years, which is so cool. It's got a tunnel. They run out in the field, and it's really awesome. Great field. Great atmosphere. Spring Lake having a really a surprising season, but right there with the big boys as of Catholic Central and West Catholic. I will still stay with Catholic Central at home.
CC.
Too many questions about Spring Lake's quarterback right now. I don't know if Campbell's going to be on the field, so I got to go with Grand Rapids.
Cougars at home.
Napoleon and Grass Lake is another game we talked about earlier in the show. Grass Lake is a team that is 6-0 on the season. I think they will move to 7-0. I'm taking Grass Lake.
Grass Lake.
Warriors at home.
Grass Lake.
Traverse City St. Francis undefeated. They are going to Shawnee School, Sheboygan, and they are 4-2 on the season at home. I'm sure that Sean has to take Sheboygan.
Well, that was my spot.
That was Scott.
What did I say, Shawnee?
Yeah, you did.
I meant Scott. I meant Scott. I was looking at
I want to take Sheboygan, but I don't know. TCSF is just such a juggernaut. I can't. I got to pick against the Team Schultz and Sheboygan. I'm going to say that St. Francis is going to get this victory.
Gladiators.
I agree.
Fighting Hallex.
All right. Three Rivers and Edwardsburg. The annual war is renewed. Two teams who are putting up just points at premiums. And again, last year, in the regular season, we had Edwardsburg falling, and this time they're at home. I'm taking the Eddies.
I'm going Iron Maiden.
Okay.
That was for you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Eddies.
I'll go Three Rivers.
Okay. Three Rivers. That's going to be a good game. Fenton and Flushing, again, two teams that are familiar with each other. Flint Metro game. Get together, Fenton 5-1, Flushing 4-2. This one at Flushing. I'm going to take Fenton on the road.
Oh, I thought I was going to be a different guy. I'm going to go Tigers on the road as well.
All right.
I'm going Fenton, too.
All right. We're all going Fenton.
Disrespecting that Flushing home
Wow.
field.
All right. I have definitely looked at this one, Macomb, Dakota, and Romeo. We've got Macomb, Dakota, 19th in state, 5-1. Underappreciated, I think, just because they have one loss, and that was the Chip Valley 24-17. Romeo coming in, having a great season. And I think really if they can pull this one off and get in the playoffs, they're going to put themselves in a position where they say, the MAC Red is still definitely up for grabs, and it's not just Big Red territory. I will go Bulldogs at home to beat Macomb, Dakota.
I'll go Romeo as well.
I'm going Romeo, Kid Rock Nation.
Okay.
I'm going to be Cougars.
All right,
Cougars.
That's smart. All right, so we got one there. Oxford and Clarkson getting together. I don't have to even make much statement. Clarkson at home.
Clarkson.
Yep.
But I think Oxford will make it a game.
I think it'll be a good game.
I think this will be within 10, 14 points.
The Battle of Dearborn Heights, our main event on State Champs this Sunday at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. Dearborn Heights, Crestwood at Dearborn Heights, Robichaud. Both teams 6-0. We talked a little bit about Robichaud's freshman quarterback and the fact that they are on a roll. So are the Crestwood football team that the Chargers, who have not had this kind of success in a long time, just their fourth winningest season in the past 13 years. This is going to be a good one. This is our main event on the show, and I am going to take Crestwood on the road.
I was going to find a lightning bolt and do the whole Lee Corso thing. I couldn't find one, but I'm with you, Crestwood.
All right.
I'll go Robichaud.
I'm going to go Williams to Underwood and Robichaud.
Okay. I figured that's how we would play it out on that one. So we'll see how that one turns out. Detroit Public Safety, the school that builds the next wave of corrective officers in our community, is 5-1, and they're taking on Lutheran Wesleyan, the game that I will be filming at. This was a viewer email chosen game. It's homecoming at Westland, and they're really geared up and fired up for this one. It's big in the MIAC. I am actually going to take Lutheran Westland at home, despite the fact that public safety have been so really, really good this year.
Bridges and public safety.
Okay.
I'm going to take public
safety.
All right. We'll see if I'm the outlier on that one. South Lyon and Waterford Mott getting together. We've got South Lyon ranked 25th in the state right now. They are 6-0. Waterford Mott reeling, needs this one in the worst way. And South Lyon, I think, just is ready to put their foot on the neck and say, it's our turn now, baby.
Lions.
I am going Lions.
Lions.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say that they're gonna show that heart
that
that
I've ever been in making a Lions.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna say that the Corsairs showed that heart that's been missing. The last
I
3
had a
weeks.
feeling you would do that, and again, that would not shock me if Waterford pulled that
and put their season
just
back on
because of
track.
the desperation that is needed. And
Because
again,
they have the talent.
Oh.
I mean, talent, man for man, Waterford Mott is a more talented team than South Lyon.
And 3 weeks ago, if this game is 3 weeks ago, we're probably all
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, Corsairs are going
Right.
to take care of business at home." So that shows you how different. Just
but
a
again,
couple of weeks
sometimes
can
what the stars you have on your recruiting profile
I know.
doesn't always translate to what happens on the football field. South Lyon doesn't have any kids with any stars, and they're 6-0.
make. There you go. A TVC East Division matchup is Millington and Frankenmuth. Both teams at 5-1. Again, a rivalry that goes way back. Millington's only loss beginning of the year. Frankenmuth, a team that has coming off a 56-18 win. They are a team that has been really, really good over the last several years, and I am staying with Frankenmuth to win this one at home.
Bronners, Zenders, Bavarian,
Yes.
and Frankenmuth all day.
Chicken for
Frankenmuth.
everyone. Warren De La Salle and Davison. Number 9 De La Salle, number 20 Davison. Davison 6-0 at home. They've never met before, which I think is awesome. You'll be able to watch the game on State Champs TV, so make sure you check it out.
It's a tough one. It's a toss-up. I'm gonna go with the Cannon Hall Express and Davison, but I think it's gonna be a close game.
I'm going the home team as well. Yep.
I'll take the Pilots.
Okay.
I got no problem going Pilots on the
if
road.
the Pilots quarterback, was still there and they weren't relying on the backup, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable. But
okay, but that's
wouldn't be surprised.
Shootout, yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if De La Salle comes back to Metro Detroit with that.
Again, where I think Giannoni's focus will be this week is on the defensive side of the ball, and he is going to say, we have been challenged. Let's go. We can do
Jacob
this.
Dobbs and Devin Campbell. It's like, it's your job to contain
Yeah.
Cannon Hall in that offense. Let's see what you can do.
Yep.
You won a state title last year, so obviously
And that's how they won it.
And you
basically,
all
was
three are
with
taking,
defense.
you all going cards, right? All
Yep.
three?
Yeah, Davidson.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Marine City and St. Clair, our final game to predict for this week. These are the final games that are on State Champs this week. This will be a great game. I think it is one that in the MAC Silver is for the Saints. Haven't had a playoff berth in a while. This is a huge game. They're only, I think one of their only losses was Madison, and they lost, and Croslex at the beginning of the year. They've played well. With all that said, I'm going Marine City.
Mariners.
Because they have win and they win and they win. What an unbelievable program they've built in that little sliver of Macomb County, if that's even where they are. If they are, they're just barely Macomb County. They're in the MAC Silver, but
right over the border.
yeah, right over the border. It's a trek if you're going from Southeast Michigan. So that is the forecast, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being patient with us and humoring us and listening to us. And again, you can comment by just going to our website. You can just directly email us. Contact us at statechampsnetwork.com if you want to talk about players. You want to talk about teams or you want to rag on somebody's prediction. It's great. We can do all that. Otherwise, we will see you back here on Monday for Extra Point. But until then, enjoy Week 7. Big weekend in high school football. Get out there and enjoy it.